as always, we encourage you to like us on Facebook, like EPIS on Facebook, and there's the EPIS website. I will let you know that we will be doing a sort of back to basics webinar or Facebook series coming up in end of February, early March, that will be really valuable information that we encourage folks to share. So if you're not already liking EPIS's Facebook, you should absolutely do so now, so you can have all of that relevant information. This Back to Basics series will be giving information that I'm assuming everybody on this call probably already knows, but it is a great tool for you to use in your community. So we encourage you to share those on your district Facebooks, share those on your coalition, your organization Facebooks as well. As always, I want to welcome our panel. We've got Elise and myself here, and Jeff, and then also Jeff Hogan helping us out today. So appreciate you, Jeffs and Elise. We did want to start by just, as always,
Phyllis
we always have to
there too, Lee. Phyllis is waving down. She's there in the corner.
Oh, hi, Phyllis. I missed you. And
in the chaos, I snuck in.
Okay. So, as always, we like to put a plug out for the PLP. So if you've not gone on to the PLP site to check out all the learning opportunities that are there, we encourage you to go ahead and do that. There is a new tool that is available. You're seeing that on your screen now. That is a PDF overview of everything great associated with the PLP. Gives you updates on what's going on with the Prevention Learning Portal, what are the new courses. So as of now, there's over 900 users signed up for the PLP. They have 14 courses available. 13 are in development, and another 68 resources available for you all to take a look at. The most popular courses that everyone is checking out is related to upstream prevention, understanding risk and protective factors, and then coordinating youth-driven work. So that's always been a hot topic for us here in the PAYS world. How can we engage youth in this process? You've got a PLP right there for you at your fingertips. Some other things that are upcoming related to the PLP are a lifelong learning, which, Elise, did you tell me that that is already... So this is already outdated. That is already live and ready for you to take a look at, the lifelong learning, an introductory guide to social emotional learning. So check that out. Also coming up is the power of SEL and coordinating youth-driven work in the community, and then sustaining your youth group. So those are going to be available soon. Those last two, the lifelong learning, it's available now. So check that out. And that PDF is a really great resource for folks to, if you're interested in seeing more of that. So what we're going to talk about today is we have two guests with us to talk about developing community resources using the PAYS. We always get a lot of positive feedback about hearing from the field, which is why we are always motivated to add folks to the group so that they can share what their experiences are and hopefully give us some information that we can utilize in our own communities. So with us today are Kayla Smith. She's the Executive Director at Karnes City Communities That Care. And then Shelby Weaver, SAP Coordinator at Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission. But I'm sure Shelby, when she introduces herself, she'll let you know she is a former CTC community mobilizer as well. So we've got some coalition support here to give you all some information. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Kayla. Thanks for being here and sharing your experiences.
Well, thanks, Elise, and thanks, Lee, for allowing me to spend some time with you today and share a little bit about what we're doing here at Karnes City Communities That Care. I did, when I created this slide, I did the click, so I appreciate, there we go. So I first wanted to start off with by saying I know the PAYS can be very overwhelming. And I know when we're looking at that, we're thinking, what do we do with this information? Kind of breaking it down into digestible parts and what we're looking for. And I think I found over the years that really the PAYS is just a matter of like taking those concepts and thinking outside of the box of how it can really create those opportunities for you within the community, for a list of different, things, whether it be programming, recruitment. So I want to talk a little bit about today and how we're doing some of those things. We've really tried to adapt the model of using PAYS data to help steer our community events here in Karn City. We live in a very rural community, and we're a tight-knit community. So what we've found is when we host certain community events, we try to take every opportunity we can to express, the facts about PAYS and the facts about our evidence-based programming. One of the things that we do, and you'll see the picture here off to your right, is we host our backpack program, the weekend backpack program here for the Karn City District. And what we've done is we created a community packing event. So many people want to help out in so many ways, and that's really been a draw for us, to draw people into, hearing about the backpack program. And we have so many doers in this community. And I always say that we have so many people who want to help. It's just finding them and finding, those key areas that they want to help in. So that's been a really good draw for us. Using the backpack program, using our youth group to gain that interest. And then once we pull those people in and they learn a little bit more about what we're doing, how we're using this PAYS data, and how we're filling those gaps and putting those programs into place to, reduce those risk factors and create those protective factors. So one of the things that we do on a yearly basis is we have a annual community Thanksgiving dinner. And I believe this was our 10th year. And with that, it's driven more community support in a lot of ways. For a lot of our programs, I always say we have a really umbrella of things that we do under Karn City Communities that care. And with that, I think our community is kind of grasping onto that and taking that and learning a lot more about what we do. It's just not a program or two. It's just not, helping kids in the community. It's a whole bundle of everything that kind of comes in together as one. So what we do is we've teamed up with our LST program at this Thanksgiving dinner, and our 7th grade instructor, she usually teaches prior to, so it works out perfect. What we do is at the end of the LST, we do a wrap-up project with the students. And what they do is they actually use our specific PAYS data, and we look at a couple of the risk factors that we're trying to really decrease and work on improving. And one of those in particular I look at is attitudes favorable towards drug use or alcohol use. So we actually have them create, we have a poster contest, and it's great because we can get buy-in from the teachers. We work with the junior high teachers, the administrative staff here, and we chose 3 winners. We actually invite the winners and their families to the dinner. And we do a little presentation with them. And we talk a little bit about PAYS data. We talk about how these posters are created and what we do with that data. So it really kind of brings it to the forefront, and people kind of understand how, we use that information, because I feel like there's a lot of misconception there of, well, you guys do a lot of good in the community, but why is it that we do that? So that's one of the ways that, we implement, the community events in that. We also host a trunk or treat with our youth group, and we try to wrap some sort of PAYS data. This year, the students created stickers and passed it out, and it had specific PAYS data. And it just happened to be wrapped around Drug-Free Week. And you'll see a poster here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it was the same image as the poster here. They put on the stickers and they passed them out to all of the kids that came through the line. And just to put the magnitude to that, we had 350 kids. So we taught, we were able to reach out to a lot of kids in our district. So that was definitely a good thing. I guess the biggest thing is I always ask myself, what are we doing to get the word out? We know why we're doing this work, but not everybody else knows that. So, a big indicator for that is what are you doing to get the word out? Obviously social media and things like that, but we've really started to try to jump on the community bandwagon, I guess, per se, but really getting it out there in other ways, through events and through, partnering organizations, things like that. So just kind of maybe brainstorming ways that you can do that. And recruitment, I will say, it's really been a great tool for us in recruitment too. As I said before, like having the events, kind of pulling people in, and then being able to sit down and say, this is what we do. This is how we've got from here to here. So it's been a really good tool in using that. And then again, we always try to take advantage of, every opportunity we have to increase those opportunities to use the SDS model with the youth. We really get the youth involved in, like I said, creating these posters. This is actually displayed in our school. The other poster winners are actually being created, and they're going to be in different parts of the school. In the fall, we're going to be putting one in the stands at the football games. We're going to eventually get one in the gym. And not only that, it's a great representation to our community that we are doing good things. I think a lot of times that we see maybe the negative impacts, but we are doing good things. Good things are coming out of Carnegie, and good things are coming out of, these other schools. And not only that, it catches the eyes of parents, of our community members. I know all too well that sometimes it's hard to get in front of those parents. And this is one of the ways that I think that's been helpful in, pushing our work out there, pushing the PACE data, pushing that out there. But we've always tried to use that positive community norms approach. And when we do these posters, we always try to reflect on the positive side of it, rather than saying 9% of KC students are doing drugs, 91% are not. So continually preaching that positive mindset. Youth group led projects. We've done a lot of youth group led projects to emphasize these risk factors. I think that we've actually worked another topic of ours, that one of our risk factors that we're really trying to work on decreasing is low commitment to school. So we found that providing, school recognition for pro-social involvement is one of the factors that we want to increase. In doing so, we feel like the low commitment to school would possibly, we could decrease that risk factor. So with that being said, we've actually teamed up with our KC Incentive Committee, our school incentive committee, to try to brainstorm ideas and things that we can do as from a community aspect to help, be a charge in helping, bring that commitment to school back, and have kids engaged, have them want to be coming to school, feel that school's important, that type of thing. And again, just using current evidence-based programs to drive that community awareness. I can't say that enough. We've just really tried to, right now, our youth group is actually working on like a prom campaign. Prom's going to be coming up here. We're working on a prom campaign for alcohol use. And, we're going to be creating signage. We're going to be creating, putting it out into the community, throughout our schools. I'm really trying to promote, again, that positive mindset. And just to share with you, in doing some of this work, I always say that, prior to coming here, I've always been a big setting my goals high, but I think that it's planting a seed. And when we plant these seeds, it takes time. But I'm happy to say that we're starting to see those results. We've been doing this work since 2016, and I can say, like, Jeff was the director before me. He built the framework for that. And, I come in and I've just kind of led the charge and taken that on. But since 2016, we've been doing this work, and we're starting to see those results. So slow and steady wins the race. I want to share with you, some of the risk factors that we look to reduce are starting to reduce. The attitudes favorable towards alcohol and drug use they've decreased by 9%. The low commitment to school, that's decreased by 8%. And that's from the 2021 data. And on the other end of that, academic failure, that's decreased by 8.3%. So things are working, things are cycling. It's just stay the course, and keep doing the work that we're doing. It will happen. So that's all that I have. I appreciate your time today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kayla. That was great. Lots of really great information. It's awesome to see all the hard work you've done here as well. It's really great. And can you tell us a little bit about I know a little bit about the Post-its, but can you talk a little bit about that? I see that those are
Sure.
in some of
Yeah.
these pictures.
So pictures are worth 1,000 words. And these are some of the projects that our Inspiring Gremlins, our youth group, has done over the years. The Post-it notes, so that says on the mirror, without bad days, you don't have good days. And what we did with the Post-its, we're put like inspiring messages like, make it a great day, like you're worth it, like motivational, inspirational messages. We did the sidewalk chalk. Every year we do that. And we do the little messages around PSSA time. I know that's a stressful time for some kids. So we always try to do something, motivational, then give them a little treat. You'll see pictured here, the Crayola, that was at our trunk or treat. That was actually a part of our senior high Inspiring Gremlins. We've actually broken it up into junior high and senior high group this year. You can see they come up with a red ribbon spirit week. And we try to motivate students through wearing different outfits throughout the week to help, kick off Red Ribbon Week. Down here on the far right is we do locker messages. These are positive messages. I will say for Valentine's Day, actually, the students are working on locker messages, and we're putting them on everybody's locker. They'll come in on Valentine's Day and they'll have special messages all over the locker. So just trying to, again, really just create that positive mindset all around.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. Do any of the other panelists have any questions for Kayla?
Lee, I'm going to interrupt here. I think I have found a button, but I saved it in the chat that everybody could chat, but it hasn't popped up yet. So I'm not sure if it needs to be restarted or if it would have to be a new webinar. So I apologize for that, everybody. As you can see, though, I'm now allowing everybody to talk. So that way, if you have any questions or you have any conversation that you would like to, please just talk, raise your hand, or talk out. There's 50 of us in the room, and I'm down to the S's. So everybody should be able to talk and share any questions that you have, which makes it easier than the.
And Ron does have a question in the Q&A I missed, sorry. So Kayla, Ron wants to know, does your school community make the district pays report available to the public?
So yes and no. We have, being a separate entity from the school, we always try to tread lightly on that topic. Obviously, with school approval, we've been able to put things out. I know there's been talk about possibly putting, with our superintendent, our administrative staff, that there's been talk about putting that available on the website. I don't believe that's happened yet. But we try to actively engage with, school board and administrative staff, but that hasn't publicly been displayed.
Thanks, Kayla. This is Ron. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I asked that question because that does come up a lot in our districts. I work for an intermediate unit which supports all the districts, and some of them, like you said, put it on their website. Some of them keep it very close and don't even share it with staff. They only share it at an administrative meeting. Some of them share it just with their staff. So I didn't know what with best practices. I just, I always try to tell schools that the survey does not reflect students or your school, it reflects your community. It just happens to be taken at your school. So I know sometimes superintendents are waiting to see the data, whether or not it's worth bragging about before
Right.
deciding if they want to make it public or not. So thanks. Nice job today on your presentation.
Thanks. And
Thanks,
Ron,
Ron.
thank you for sharing that, because in all honesty, you're right. Like every superintendent is different and every school is different, but hopefully some conversations, if there is someone who, wants to have that district level data, hopefully we can, here at Penn State too, we can help facilitate that discussion to make sure that it's released in a responsible way that the superintendent feels comfortable with. I don't ever want it to get to a point where, I did have a parent who filed a right to know because her superintendent didn't want to release it. And we were able to work around that before it got bad. But I think it's an important piece of knowing what the district is comfortable sharing.
Well, at least you mentioned something that's pretty important. What does a school district do with a right to know request? Do they have a right to see that even though the superintendent chooses not to make it public?
They do. They do. I mean, and that's why it doesn't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
Really a conversation, just a conversation being had, and how is this being used and used responsibly? Because in all honesty, we know that most people who are looking for district level data are not doing it in a derogatory way, right? They just want the information to use, and it doesn't have to get to that point. But
yeah, sometimes it's a reporter looking for a juicy story too. So I
right,
hear what you're
right.
saying. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Nice job.
You're welcome.
And I think, Ron, you bring up a really good point that, this doesn't happen often, but at least you kind of alluded to, this is one of the areas that can get sticky real quick. And I think, this is part of making sure administration and in the district really has that ability to talk about the good stuff, talk about, the realities, all across the board. And that's part of what we, always try to do, is to help give the words that can help ease some of these concerns. And I'll say in my experience, and it doesn't happen often, but it does happen that anytime, a district, we've been working with the district and there's been some requests for information, there's typically other issues going on there too. It's not usually just the pays that a parent's getting upset about, honestly. And I think just helping to diffuse that is something we all can help with. And I think districts would help with some language and some things. Also, Ron, you bring up about, a reporter looking for, a good story, right? What is it today? Any publicity is good publicity. I'm not sure that's true in our world, but I think, again, helping districts be able to have packaged information. Here's all the good stuff, here's some reality, do that sandwiching, help. Now, that doesn't mean a reporter is not going to put his or her own spin on it, right? But I think really just being in that space to help navigate through this. And as folks from the local areas, I know in my experience, I've seen y'all can be such a value add, and the school districts would really appreciate.
Yeah, I'll just jump in there too, Phyllis, and say that as someone, since you referred to the local communities, I'll say that I think it takes a lot of work to get that information out there about the pays in general, to let people know that you are the people that should be answering those questions. And a lot of times, when it comes to specific district data, we don't share anything. We have the luxury of having all 6 of our school districts participate in our county, so we share a lot of county-wide data. But we always ask permission from our districts to see if they want it. But I actually recently had a reporter reach out to me about some problem gambling information. And I was glad she did, because I was able to direct her to the pays. And now she's become someone who knows about the pays. And it's like, we're building a relationship there because of this question that she had. So like it takes a lot of work. And then in this, I'm going to answer this question and allow my fellow panelists to jump in as well. A question that Olympia had asked: do parents know about pays? And the goal is, they should, but this can turn into a sticky situation as well. And we want parents to know exactly what's going on, and we never want to hide anyone from folks ever. But it can become sort of a topic that can be sort of difficult to get questions answered. It depends on what the parents are asking. So Phyllis, Elise, Jeff's, if you want to jump in and try to answer that
Yeah,
question as
I
well.
mean, and we've had too, we've had many, like I field most of the questions that are linked to when the survey flyer goes out to the parents from the school. There's definitely a lot of questions that come from parents. Last administration, we did create a one-page document for parents specifically talking about the pays, and it's available to anybody who feels like they need it. We've shared it with the schools so they could put it on their social media, on their web page, that they could use that. So if parents had any questions, they could utilize that. So it's about the engagement and the communication, right? Just making sure that the school knows, here are some tools, here's what you can provide the parents, and here's why it's important. So as long as we do a good job at communicating, we don't seem to have issues, but sometimes it doesn't happen, as we all know. So.
Well, and I think also, and at least this lands in your space for sure. I think, we at least answers thousands literally of emails of parents. They just want to know, what are you asking my student? And 99.999% of the time, parents are like, oh, thank you. This is really good. And they move on. But again, going back to typically, and, there's sometimes parents, their own selves, they had a bad experience with education, and they're before they walk into those school buildings, they're already angry and they're upset. And it's many times this is just sort of a periphery space they can be in. Now, I know a lot of school boards are becoming more conservative. And I think we all, and I'll say to our leadership team here and everyone here, but that we've got to be in a place to really help to continue to navigate this very sensitive space, to help districts that are that get out in front of it, be transparent, find those spaces where you can really, that it's not looking like you're trying to hide things. But also, I'm not Pollyanna here. That's not easy either. So I think this is something that we just have to keep working and pivoting as we need to, because that, I think, is a very, very a very, very big piece of what we have to do, because things are changing. Olympia, thank you for your comment. She said also about reducing the stigma around pays. That's some really good language there, and I think, what we are hopeful for, again, we're here. If you have a sticky situation that you're aware of, if you let us know, you've got a lot of people that can help you devise and some approaches. If you need an outside voice, that we're also here to do that, to help navigate, and sometimes that also helps as well. So just really, opening up those spaces. Because I will also say, if you see a challenge in this space, let us know about it, because it helps us learn. It helps us. How did you respond? What was the outcome? How can we help others navigate as we are sort of pivoting in these sometimes uncharted waters these days?
Phyllis, I think you guys have done a wonderful job in the past with the things like the frequently asked questions. I think most questions that probably come can probably be, found on those. But again, there are those rare ones that come up, and don't hesitate to reach out to somebody on this team if those happen.
All right, thank you. Great conversation as always. We love having these webinars be sort of free flowing and be able to have a real nice dialogue. And I feel like that's happening today. So thank you all. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the conversation. And now we're going to kick it over to Shelby Weaver. Shelby is going to talk to us about her experience working with the PAYS, and switching gears a bit, really focusing on, what it's like to work with adults, and the resources, and making sure that we are creating resources locally for folks in our community. So Shelby?
Hi, hold on one second. Let me make sure I share my right screen here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Like Lee said, my name is Shelby. I am currently the Student Assistance Program Coordinator at the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission. But I also was for a little over a year our Communities That Care mobilizer. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we did with the PAYS in our Communities That Care coalition. But I'm here to just talk about how we get the pays out into our community, some of the things that we do, like I said, as a coalition with the Communities That Care, but also just as the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission. So some of the ways that we get the PAYS data out into our community are through work groups, school groups, and community presentations. So like I had just said, the work groups that we really work with are with our Communities That Care of Fayette County coalition. So the Communities That Care of Fayette County encompasses all of Fayette County. And we have volunteers from many different, walks of life, many different organizations come in, and this is fantastic for us getting our PAYS data out, because we are then able to emphasize to these other organizations why they should know themselves the PAYS data, for grant writing or just really backing up the things that they are trying to promote into our community, but also so that they can tell the people they're interacting with why the PAYS is so important. Within our coalition for the Communities That Care of Fayette County, we have a PAYS work group, and that work group specifically talks about the PAYS. So every time we get new PAYS data, they spend months analyzing the data. They meet monthly, and every month they take a section and they fully analyze that data. They pull out all of the important information, and then once that happens, this information that is pulled out that they have deemed, the most important, or the ones that are affecting the most people, they will then send that over to the PR and outreach work group in the Communities That Care coalition, and that is how we will then create things to push out to our community that explain some of the stuff that's going on with our pays. We also, in our Communities That Care coalition, use the pays to influence how we, approach what programs we're pushing out, the things that we're doing within our community. The Communities That Care coalition of Fayette County has made it their priority to address depressive symptoms in youth, because that is one of our highest categories for our PAYS data, and one of the ones that we had seen a spike in, and really where it was affecting our county. And so we use the PAYS, to determine that information, and then every PAYS year, every time we get more PAYS data, we then go back to our community action plan, which was created based, on the information we got from the PAYS. And we update that based on the differences in data in the PAYS. And if we've, met our goal of decreasing depressive symptoms by the programs that we've chosen to put into schools and to promote, then, we'll reevaluate. But currently depressive symptoms is the number one, and we use the PAYS to figure that out. Also, we do school groups. So something that myself and Lee have done is meet with what we call A teams at our schools, and they're made up of counselors, teachers, admin, really anyone that wants to be a part of deep diving into the PAYS. And this is where I will take a specific PAYS report for a school district, and I will break that down by sections and by questions, and really just fully fledge out their PAYS data, because we think that it's important that the school district understands the data that they're looking at, and they're able to, kind of like we were just having this discourse about, they understand the good and also what they can change to benefit their school. So like I said, we create a very, very fully fledged document. This is something that we have done over multiple months. We've also done in like 3-hour sittings. It's really however works for the school, because we will make it as short or as long as we need to be to make sure that we get this PAYS data in front of as many school counselors, teachers, administration as possible, so that we know that they're understanding, why they're taking this test survey, and why they're able to what information they're able to pull out and use from this. We, like I said, I pull out all of the sections, so all every section within the page, all 6 of them. And then also we pull out every single question within each section. And we go through each question compared to the years prior and how those things have changed, how they've stayed the same, if they've gotten worse, if they've gotten better. And then we also talk about, we like to get the insight from these school professionals on what they think made this change. There's no way to know for sure, but it's nice to say, well, this year we implemented this program. Do you think that this was something that could have changed the way that, this and this and this happened within our pays? Data.
Also, just I want to jump
Yeah.
in and say too, Shelby, that these A teams, these analysis teams, these can be done, like Shelby said, we do them virtually or we do them in person, however they want to do it. But we've worked with school districts over a long period of time. And this also gives us the like we're one specific school district, we met with them monthly. And this really gives us an opportunity to dive into their data using the PAYS guide for us. Like we use the information from the PAYS guide to drive the work, right? Like the questions that Shelby is creating, the analysis that she's doing is straight from the PAYS guide. So that we're not, developing any new tools. We're really just pulling them straight from the PAYS guide. And this is a really great opportunity for the school district to say, okay, well, here's all of our SAP data, or here's all of our, if they have other data that they've collected throughout the year. So it really allows us, who is looking at this district data from just the pays, it allows everything to sort of get like married together and to really have this in-depth conversation with schools. And we, like I said earlier, we have 6 districts in our county, and we've done some version of this with half of them. So it's worked really well so far, and this has allowed them to drive decisions on what they want to do.
Yeah, and it also really helps with, like I had mentioned before, our Communities That Care coalition. That's the coalition that is pushing some programs within our schools, as well as the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission. And it's easier to have a discourse about what programs to put into schools when they understand their PAYS data. And we're able to say, well, we looked at this. This is your data. This is why we think that this specific program is good. And it also opens that conversation of schools being able to say, well, we then need a program that's going to change this specific thing within their school. And then the last thing that I would like to talk about is community presentations. So something that the Fayette County Drug and Alcohol Commission, really driven by our Fayette County PAYS expert Lee over here. He's the one that usually is helping me drive this force of getting this information out there. We do a lot of different community presentations. One of the ones that we really saw success with was something that we called Humanizing the Data, Making the PAYS Work for Youth. This was born out of how we can make the general community and the organizations within our community understand how this PAYS data can impact our youth. So basically taking the data that the youth have given us and are able to give it back to them and benefit them. So some of the things that we talked about, this was we did 2 separate presentations for this, and this was a full day presentation, and we broke out the PAYS into as much detail as we possibly could, so that we knew that the people leaving that room would understand every aspect that they needed to understand to be able to use this data efficiently. So the first things that we did when we first got there was explain to them the overview of the PAYS. We explained to them what how it's being taken, what the kids, what the youth are seeing, how they're taking it, what exactly it is in general, the different versions that they can take, how it's administered, the timeline of the kids taking it and then getting the reports and all of that, who can participate in it, how they can participate in it. And also we talked about the PAYS online tool that you can use to compare different questions on the PAYS. This is important so that they're not only looking at data, but they can look at the entire survey and understand it more in depth than just understanding or seeing the data that they've received. And this was a full county data. We weren't using school specific data. We were using the full county data for this presentation. So some of the slides that we were showing were related to impact. So this was the big one that we talked about, and we did an activity for how to show impact. So what we did was we gave them 2 colored marbles, black marbles and white marbles, and we had them get a glass jar, and they had to basically pick a question in their sections. They were broken up into sections based on the 6 sections of the PACE, and then they were told to pick a question that they thought impacted the most amount of students, and then they had to do a lot of math and figure out the amount of students that were affected by this question, and or the students who have used or who have not used. And we did this so that they could see the difference in students that are using, that are not using. It always helps, at least in my opinion, to see a visual of data, especially when you're trying to talk about impact. Because if you have, it's good either way. If you have more that have not used, then you can always, use that narrative of not everyone is doing it, right? Kids think that like, oh, everyone my age drinks alcohol. Well, no, they don't. Or on the other hand, you could also say, why is there this many students that are using it? So I think that this really helped with the impact. A lot of our participants in this were kind of surprised by how it looks, because on paper, when you see 30%, you're like, oh, okay, 30%, that's not that high. But then when you see it as like a student count, it becomes a lot more impactful, and it's also a lot easier to explain to people, like, look at the amount of students that are impacted in this. We also did a severity activity. So this was basically just having our groups, again, talk about 3 data points that within their section that they identified as severe, and then listing consequences for why that was severe. I think that it's often overlooked, this like the severity of things, because you can say, okay, 30% of kids or youth are drinking alcohol, and it might look like a 30% isn't that high of a number, but the severity of the consequences within that make that a very important data point. And that was kind of what we were pointing out here is, it might not seem like you might not think that the small percentage of lifetime gambling youth is important, but what's the severity of that of the consequences of this action? And then we did time trends. So this, it was just looking from the 2019, 2021, and 2023 data, and comparing how those were changing over time. And they had to pick out a couple of specific points that they thought changed a lot, or that they thought would have changed more and it didn't change a lot, or it went down drastically. This was something that they could, choose to do it in a positive light or in a negative light, however they wanted to look at that. And then they could explain why they thought it was interesting that it had changed over time. And again, it was just showing them that the PAYS gives them all of that information of how it's changing over the years. And then we could open that conversation up of, well, why do we think it's changing? What do we think we could change in the county to make it go up or go down? And then we talked about how things were compared to the state. This is something that we also do when we were doing the A-team groups, always how it's compared to the state, because it really just puts into perspective where the county is obviously compared to the state. And then this was just something to again show them how they can use this data and how they can compare it to the state and pull it out, but also how they can look at it on a smaller level. And that's all I have for that. The humanizing the data was such a big presentation that turned out to be a very big success. We had a lot of important people within our county, but also just people within organizations that should be using the pays come. We had school personnel come. It was really great, and we felt like we got a lot of information out with that specific presentation. But that's all I have. So if anyone has any questions or anyone wants to say anything.
I think thank you, Shelby, very much. And I know Lee's going to talk about it too, but you hear him talk all the time. So thank you very much, Shelby. And I think humanizing that was huge. Those are wonderful tools that you did. And I love that it touched everyone, right? It could be the community members, it could engage the youth, which is always a big piece that we always want to do, especially with the pays. And to piggyback on that, I'm going to Olympia. I see Phyllis is typing, but Olympia is talking about the students being honest about their use and then getting in trouble for admitting use. We're very aware right now in the development of the survey, and that we are all online, that there is some issues with some students who, oh, you can track our IP address, you can track what's happening, it's not anonymous. We actually have a Proctor video. We did one last year, and we're improving it a little bit this year. And it really does give the students all the same message. We don't know. This is not something that can be tracked, not something that we can identify. And it encourages them to be honest. And that's really all we can do at this point. We understand as adults in the world that this is something that we would love to say, yes, every student is honest, but we encourage it. We tell them, we let them know that this is not tracked. There's no way we can know your IP address. You took the survey. That's all we know about what your survey has done. And that's a big deal for kids. And it's very important. Even the fourth graders that we piloted, they were even like, well, why, you can tell what I answer if I'm on the computer. And they get those mixed messages, right? Whatever you do online we can see it. Everybody can see it. But in reality, that's not how the pays works. And then on the back end of that, obviously, we have the validity and reliability checks to make sure that we are doing the best scientific best practices we can to get answers that are accurate and reliable from our youth. So and hopefully that answers your question on both ways. And I know, Lee, you had also answered, there was a question about the overview available on the website or YouTube. If you attend for this actual video, you'll get the video next Wednesday in a MailChimp that kind of says, hey, thank you for attending, or if you didn't get to attend, here's the recording. So this is available. And hopefully that answers that, because I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of resources for online overviews, using the PAYS guide, using the PAYS data. And if anybody wants any information, my email's on here somewhere. I'd love to put it in the chat, but maybe next time.
So the other thing I just wanted to add to, I think it's really interesting that I'll just give you a bit of a youth perspective that I encountered last week. And it was a group of youth who are part of a teen senate in Montgomery County. They're very in tune. This is their passion. I mean, they know PAYS, they're interested in PAYS. Great group of kids. And it was really interesting because they were speaking in front of a crowd of about 70 people. And initially they were sort of saying, well, kids aren't being truthful. And I'm like, but yes, they are, because even they didn't realize we have validity checks and reliability. And they're like, oh. And I said, I will ask, because I was the facilitator anyway, part of this big event thing. And I said, let me also say, it's not cool to say I took this seriously. So they may say to your friends may say to you, oh no, I just sang on Christmas tree. I didn't do that. But the reality is, what our data is showing, most kids are taking it seriously and are being honest. One of the things that we also know is that the percentage of surveys that are deemed invalid, that, as we say, are thrown out, anything under 10% within a surveying effort is considered statistically sound. Our numbers are like less than 1%, or like less than 2%, somewhere in that 1% range. And so there are these checks and balances But part of this, I do believe, and after I talked to these really cool kids about it, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, you're kind of right. And we also unpack the fact that, while the numbers, let's say vaping, because they were sort of, this is one of their things is vaping in the bathroom. Everybody's doing it. I said, but are they really? And I said, are you encountering the same 10 kids who are doing it? Because y'all are on the same schedule going into the bathroom at the same time, sort of unpacking this in a way. They're like, I've never thought of it like that, and I think this is where I'm going with all of this is, as Elise wisely said, we can only do what we can do. But, we hope, and what we also want to do with the video that Lee's going to be working on, and we're going to improve that, but also, work with schools to help them make this a cool thing. Encourage kids. This is your voice. This is nobody's voice but yours. Let us hear it. And kids want to know, if you hear it, what you going to do with it, right? So having, like Shelby, y'all are talking about, they can see where the data is put to work. They can see that people are engaged, and making sure that it's not just them, online using their fingers to answer a question, but that they're saying something and people are listening. And I think that, that in encouraging, like y'all do, that bi-directional conversation around it, because that, I think, is something that is vitally important, and I think, and Shelby, you did touch on this, it's making the data real. We can spout out all we want, but until we make the data real, and by that I mean dispelling some myths sometimes, like not every kid's in the bathroom shooting at heroin. They're not, it's like dispelling some myths, recentering thinking sometimes, and I think having that space to be a really dynamic conversation is super important. Kayla, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just saw your hand there. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Actually, I'm Shelby and Phyllis. I'm glad you brought that up, because we actually, I went to a training a while ago, and we've actually put together like a formatted a training for the students, like who do our life skills training and as a part of our Inspiring Gremlins. And it's a training to talk about the perceived norms versus the actual norms, and it comes into play really big when it comes to the PACE data, because what we've done is we've asked them how many kids you think are doing it your age, and we come up with some astronomical big number, 95%, when in fact, and again, just throwing an example, like 37% are doing it. So I think it's a realization for the students too, once they hear that and understanding no, not everyone's doing it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, and it's not to diminish that we don't have issues we need to work on, and there are kids who need help. It's not that, but it is about that's recentering. And I also think, and Shelby, I believe you brought this up about the all data by grade, being able to say, y'all said 37%, but let's look at how many kids that really is.
Right.
And being able to dig in that space, making the data real. And I don't care if that is in a 30-minute presentation. As you said, you grab them when you can and keep them as long as they're willing to stay, right? And it's one of those that making the data real is important. The way y'all did it is amazing. Double thumbs up. I mean, amazing the way that you did it. You did those adult mental sets. You reached adults in a way, getting them thinking. You kept them active. It wasn't just a blah, 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 which I know I'll raise my hand. I get in a space where you're given 30 minutes to talk about 6 hours of information. And so it's sort of, I think, one of those that you really did touch on a lot of things that need to happen. And you inspired me. So I appreciate you.
All right.
Very
Well,
thankful. And I think
thank you all presenters. Thank you panelists.
I have a couple of questions in here that were in the chat, Lee.
Okay.
Not my questions,
Okay.
that were in the chat.
So, well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Phyllis.
Well, one of them was about how many PACE work groups exist. Olympia, I don't know if you want to unmute and ask your question specifically.
She also left her contact information if we wanted to reach out to her, follow up.
Yeah, good, because I wanted to, about one of her.
So it's in there for you specifically.
Okay. Great. Good. And I don't know, Olympia, about Pottstown. I don't know, is there anybody here from Pottstown? I know that that there's a new coalition there, but we can talk about that later. And the other question was, could you
Is-
outline, I know you have our next webinar, but could you outline sort of the method or the kind of the 2 on 1 off, scheduling of these?
We are on until May. So we have a
Okay.
plan up until May. Next month for March, we're doing Pays in Action. So join us for that at 1 o'clock for the next webinar. And then after that, we will be doing it because it is a pays year, believe it or not, we will be starting to talk about some logistics, what to expect for 2025. We'll be doing that in April. If you received the flyer that outlines all of the schedule, there was a correction on that. We'll send out a new flyer. The date for that webinar in April is April 2nd at 1 o'clock, always at 1 o'clock. And then for our May, we're going to be starting to talk about recruitment. So we do have a plan up until May. So please you'll find us here for the next 3 months at 1 o'clock. So please join us. We also will always ask you to please take the survey. So we don't have a chat, so we will be sending that link.
Oh, please.
We will be
Yes,
sending that link out via email to participants. So if you've participated, please, please, please take the survey. You can, if you have any pays questions for Elise, you can go ahead and scan that QR code. It'll take you right to her. And that is it. Thank you all for hanging on a couple minutes extra. We appreciate you all. And thanks for joining us. And we will see you in March.
Perfect. Wonderful. And Lee, that was great. And the last question I did answer, any discussion about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh schools taking part to provide a better picture statewide? Always. Any connections, any way you can get us in? Absolutely. We will continue those discussions, and it is always on the table for us to do that. So we'll leave it at that. And thank you very much. We'll see you all next month.
I will say Philly conversations have started. But y'all connect us with Pittsburgh. We need it.